Welcome, Rami Osman. Rami is the Corporate Sales and Marketing Director for MediaTek for the whole of Africa and the Middle East. Welcome to Tech Central today. It's an honor to have you on our call. And I know a lot has been discussed around MediaTek and 5G. We've got the expert in the room, and we're very much looking forward to what you have to say. Welcome, Rami.
Thank you, James. Thank you. It's a pleasure meeting you for the first time. Hope we make it face-to-face soon in South Africa.
Very much, and welcome the whole way from Dubai. It's a cool day here in Johannesburg, but we're ready to get hot under the collar about 5G. There's a lot going on in this space. Yeah, there's a lot going on in the 5G arena, and we typically are working out what the difference is between 4G and 5G, and scaling ourselves towards 5G, and are excited about it. And I know that there's been a lot of media press recently about the technical aspects behind 5G. So today we're going to talk a bit more practically and reflect on what 5G means for us. Could you kick us off, please, Rami?
Okay, so G stands for generation. I know about your audience, so I think they are mostly business personas in South Africa. So I'm happy to be getting this chance to talk to some of the leaders of the economy. 5G is a telecommunications technology, but telecommunications is in the heart of the ICT industry. So everything depends on it. It's the vastest system ever in humanity. What we have reached with the smartphone and what we are reaching with the Internet of Things in the years to come is something that TV, laptop have never even come close. Okay. So 5G is an enabling technology. Otherwise, it will be an engineering concept, not interesting to anyone. For our friends who read and listen and watch Tech Central, they are, of course, hearing about 5G as the next generation. So I don't think we have to go that deep, to explain about, GSM phones in the 90s, when we were only limited to voice calls and text messages. And then going into 3G and some smartphones, and then the iPhone 2008 and Android 2010 and beyond. So, the cellular component of your connectivity is the G, okay? And the cellular is the link between your terminal, the terminal in your hand, and these cellular tower. So you exchange the signal with them, and then those towers relay the signal through the backbone of the network to the telecom operator offices like Vodacom, MTN, and other operators.
So just to define it clearly, the 5G is the integrated chip technology that sits inside a device. And that device could be mobile, home, automation, and many other.
5G is the fifth generation of the standardized cellular communication technology. The chip is a component. Okay. The chip is the component. There are chips on the cellular tower. There are chips on the terminal. And there would be chips in equipment on the telecom operator central office building. Super. And we, as MediaTek, we are part of that ecosystem. And we are leaders. We are the world's largest supplier of the mobile or the smartphone chipset that sits into the terminal. The most important terminal is the smartphone.
Brilliant. And how is that positioned right now in South Africa?
So our share in Africa is more than 50%. Globally, we are between 30 to 40. We have reached as high as 43% of the smartphone share globally. Okay. So that means, if I'm telling you we are more than 50%, means more than half of the smartphones in Africa use a MediaTek chipset inside. And that chipset does not only provide you the cellular connection to the telecom operator, it also provides you the Wi-Fi connectivity, the Bluetooth, and the processing, the CPU, central processing unit, GPU, graphic processing unit, all of the powerful systems to enable the functions of a smartphone are powered by the chipset. And we are in more than half of them in Africa.
Brilliant. That's good to know. And because so often people think of South Africa as being the tip of Africa and sometimes forgotten. We're not forgotten by MediaTek. So thank you very much for looking after us and looking after Africa. And I think it's important to understand that the mobile phone is ubiquitous. It's a device that leads people to direct communication. It leads people to sources of education. It leads people to opportunity to learn and to shop and to engage. That connectivity is integral to us as Africans. I say at the tip of Africa. And as Tech Central, we are so proud of bringing technology to the fore. And here in South Africa, there's massive developments, and 4G has rolled out very successfully. I think 5G is something that is a fast-growing technology that's going to leapfrog the capability of those ubiquitous handsets. Could you talk a bit about that, please?
South Africa has always been an industrial and an innovation hotspot in the continent. And in some industries, it was world-class. World-class innovations used to come from South Africa. To be honest, it's in my region, and I'm very interested to develop and to work closer with South Africa to develop that and maybe to bring it back to some of the glory days. So the tip is the top. Okay. We are hoping that faster developments of 5G traction in South Africa will bring the continent faster. Usually, Africa has a curve that is behind the world curve, okay? We belong in Middle East and Africa to the emerging markets globally, okay? Emerging markets being Latin America, Middle East and Africa, Southeast Asia, India, okay? These are the top 3 emerging markets globally. Now, 1.4 billion population, if you count Pakistan, 1.6 billion population. And South Africa is, I think, the second most developed 5G market outside of the Gulf markets of Dubai, Saudi Arabia, okay, the GCC countries. So maybe for you and for your readers and listeners, they're not aware of that. Actually, it's really good. If you look at other African countries, our friends in Vodacom and MTN, and with the government support, with the auction in March, and I hope they can also be more supportive for them and release more spectrum. I am working with the other partners in the ecosystem to develop the 5G infrastructure is the first thing. Without infrastructure, the terminal, doesn't connect to anything, right? So okay. I thought to give you a quick idea about where we are. If you want to go into the details, we can look at the numbers of coverage by the telecom operators. I think we'll be reaching a good percentage of the population soon. In terms of the speed, I can assure your readers and listeners that it will be on par of EMEA region, if you will, because there are some implementations in Japan and US with a millimeter wave. We'll also work with the telecom operators in South Africa, hoping to jump to millimeter wave technology later.
Rami, I think what I'm definitely also hearing here is you may be driving smartphone adoption, but you're doing it from the top-down approach and making sure the infrastructure is there to support that wave that's hopefully going to follow 4G.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, people they have a love and hate relationship with the telecom company because we look at the bill at the end of the month, but we really don't know what's going on and the investment. And it's not always a lot of money as they may be expecting. It's cost a lot to do this. So we really have to appreciate the role that the telecom operators, especially in a country like South Africa with poor fixed infrastructure. So you need wireless.
Yeah,
it's a do or die for the economy, for the education. So we really need to work together. Okay, there's no, I think, interest for anybody in cynicism or in delaying the evolution. All of us, consumer, telecom operator, and the government, with the multinational players like MediaTek, we need to work together. Without the infrastructure, we will not bring the newest mobile phones to you or the newest routers, home routers for connectivity, and the consumer will struggle and will feel unprivileged in this new age where, connectivity is like a basic human right. But we want beyond connectivity. This is last decade dream. Now we need top-notch connectivity so that we are productive, so that the startups in agriculture, in healthcare, in education, especially post-COVID, don't suffer from, okay, I have fast connectivity when I'm in my office in downtown, and when I go to the suburb or in my other office, we get poor connectivity. We should work together to make sure, as you said, it's ubiquitous.
And I think a lot of people are working from home. A lot of people are finding new ways to be ingenious in their delivery of a similar or different product. People are finding ways to make money in alternative means. And I think that if we don't provide that connectivity, as you say, they're going to feel left behind, and we can't afford that.
One thing I want to say about 5G, if you allow me, sorry.
Absolutely, right? Go ahead.
Usually the consumer, I don't know if I'm saying too many secrets today, but the consumer expects 5G connectivity where they are living.
Yes.
And when they're reading the article, they will not pay attention to this something called population coverage. Okay. Geographical coverage is important, but population coverage is more important. Okay. So without that, you really don't leverage 5G where you are sitting, because you will check your mobile phone and you're getting 3G. If you're lucky, maybe 4G. Then where do I get 5G? So that's at the early days of the deployment, due to cost and other reasons, we will have to work on the hotspots where the population is dense and the businesses are focused, okay? Where there is a return on the investment, where there is an impact on the economy and GDP. And slowly we grow, okay, to cover as much of the population as possible.
On that note, and talk about 5G and the fact that it's actually already launched, are there places here in South Africa we can go and test 5G and actually make that comparison for ourselves as users?
Yes, we will be sharing later. Let me check the publicly shared information by our friends in Vodacom, MTN, and Rain. This would be usually on their websites, okay. 5G coverage map.
Okay, we'll look at that. Thank you.
I will take a note. If you don't find it, we'll take their permission to share some of the hotspots with you.
Absolutely. And on that note, a lot of what you've kindly been offering to share in terms of white papers and access to other information and the technical stats and details behind a lot of your products are available on your website. So thank you for making that available to us as the consumer and the public. Also on that note, I know that a lot of conversation has been had around, looking at your actual 5G product and understanding how to make a comparison between, your 5G, maybe someone else's 5G or other technologies, but also quite importantly, what some of those flagship processing capabilities are and how to do a like-for-like comparison. And you've kindly offered some technical expert advice on that for any of our listeners who want to follow this thread. So thank you.
You and I last time we were talking, we discussed this point, and you highlighted that there's a need. Some people are lacking information, about the newest processors. MediaTek, we are an engineering company.
Yeah.
Okay. We are in 20% of the consumer electronic devices in the world. So if you have 10 devices at home, we are in 2 of them. But we are not focused a lot on the communication and marketing. I think we should do a better work. The flagship product for MediaTek, I think it's carrying our brand to new places, is the 5G Dimensity series.
Okay.
Dimensity series will be available in devices, and it's available in devices in South Africa with the entry range, with the Dimensity 700, based on 7 nanometer process, up to the flagship, which plays on par with the highest end Android and iPhone. And actually, we are ranked the highest in the world with the Dimensity 9000. So I offer to share with you some information on that. Maybe we can make it available. I really appreciate that to your readers. And you can pass in also our contact information if there are more technical questions on that.
We certainly will. And I think that's definitely scope for another conversation in a bit more detail to talk around the specifics of those products. The Dimensity 9000, right up there with, Android and iPhone technology that the consumer of today is expecting and isn't necessarily having access to go and check on the inside of their device what's powering it, but the proof is in the pudding.
Dimensity is our family of processors for Android mobile phones. So anything from maybe $200 to $800. The partners, the companies that are using them, you have like Oppo Reno series smartphones, Xiaomi Redmi and Redmi Note series, Samsung A series, Tecno, Hisense will also bring smartphone devices using MediaTek. The prices will satisfy your consumers. We are a Taiwanese company, but Taiwanese global leader in technology.
Rami, a lot of what we've talked about so far is around smartphones. I think because, as I use that word, ubiquitous, and it's such an important part of Africa's connectivity with each other and other Africans especially. Where else, what else, how else is 5G used? And where's some other applications that you see us as South Africa using it in the first phase of its launch?
Okay, so 3G was phone call, SMS, and data. 4G was long-term evolution, LTE, which meant moving the voice from circuit-switched networks to IP networks. 5G is totally new infrastructure and technology. So the promise of 5G is way beyond mobile phone, okay? Actually, the real promise of 5G is going into things like live 3D conferences. Like I'll be talking to the hologram Mick James. And that means because you need very high speed and low latency, right? Which 4G cannot provide. To see your figure in front of me in 3D instead of 2D like what we are doing now. It helps in gaming, right? Because if I'm scoring a goal and we are celebrating together, I cannot afford even milliseconds of latency. And in automotive, vehicle-to-vehicle communication, because if you want to avoid incidents and accidents, the cars need to use reliable and ultra-fast communication. But that will take a few years, okay? Because the verticals, we are waiting for the software and applications and innovation, okay? And we're working with few companies in South Africa, like Rain and Kutlang, to develop such solutions for the future. But let's talk about what's now and in the foreseeable couple of years. I think what's interesting is 5G at home with the fixed broadband. Now, they call it sometimes in the US like a cable replacement or cable cutter. And in the US, they have better cables than us. And they still appreciate the flexibility of a CPE, consumer premises equipment, or a router. So the home router or the office router, okay, whether it's fixed or mobile, with a 5G connectivity using a SIM card from Vodacom or MTN or Rain, that is something we're working now to bring better propositions with better prices to South Africa.
And I think home automation is only just beginning. The world is about to explode with the use of the technology, and the fact that MediaTek are driven by this idea of great technology and making sure it is accessible to everybody. So, Rami, I think that's a good point for us to put a bow on today's conversation and just say thank you very, very much for making yourself available to us. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your insights. And thank you for also offering to give us a technical angle to this conversation with support after this call. Your contact details and the company website will be made available to our listeners. And I think that what you're doing for Africa is really going to be an incredible step forward for us. So we thank you for your support in that regard. So from me, James Erasmus at Tech Central, Rami Osman, the Corporate Sales and Marketing Director of MediaTek, thank you very, very much for your time, and we wish you a lovely day forward.
Thank you, James, for reaching out, and have a great day, Tech Central and its audience.